What's up everyone, welcome back to Totally Exposed. Today we're here to answer that burning question that literally nobody has been asking us. What are our 5 favourite lenses that we own for photography?
Let's do this.
Let's do this.
So first of all, if you're new to Totally Exposed, thank you for checking out this video. We're a channel all about photography and videography. We mainly do kind of loads of gear reviews and we offer tips and tutorials. So if that sounds like something you're into, please consider subscribing. But for this video, let's get into these Canon lenses and pick our top 5 for different scenarios.
Let's get into it.
So what we've done is, we've decided, let's pick 5 scenarios that are quite common with people looking to get into photography, little segments of photography that you might be looking to kind of pursue. So we've broken those down into...
So we have street and gig / low light photography.
Yeah, sort of events.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah, not quite portrait, a little bit more informal portrait style photography.
Category 2 is sports and wildlife. So we're looking at...
big topic.
Yep. Landscape and architecture.
Nice category. Very popular on the old Instagrams.
Portraits.
Huge part of the photography scene. So yeah, that's an important one. And finally, category 5.
Macro shots.
Yeah, it's kind of niche, but it is pretty cool. And there's more that you can do with a macro lens than just macro photography, so that's worth bearing in mind.
Definitely. Well, where do you want to start?
Well, let's get into it. Let's start category 1, which was sort of the, music, events, street style photography. I've done a lot of music photography. I kind of freelance doing photography for some events and some bands. So key things about a lens for, say, events and music gigs. The lighting's always going to be...
not the best.
It's going to be interesting, especially at a gig, but it's going to be low level. And it's going to be constantly changing. So you need a lens which can open up very wide to let in loads of light. Similarly, you need a lens that can focus really fast, because depending on the kind of thing that you're photographing, stuff's going to be moving all over the show. So you need a very fast focusing lens. You need a lens that can let in a hell of a lot of light. And you need something of a decent focal length.
Yes.
So on a full frame camera like the Canon 5D Mark IV, a 50mm focal range is sort of comparable to what the eye sees, supposedly. Whereas on a
80D,
a crop sensor camera, you're probably looking more like a 35mm to get the sort of just the normal sort of perspective that you'd probably see with your own eyes. Now, depending on what access you get to the gig, you might be shooting from far away. If you manage to get in the press pit at the front, 50mm is probably a good length to go for if you're on a full frame camera. So, with that in mind, you want 50mm, you want fast, which means you want prime.
Yeah.
So that kind of takes you down to a 50mm prime. Easy peasy, there we go.
Columbo to that.
Of which we have 2 here on the table. We've got this, the Nifty 50. Now this is Canon's the second in the middle of the range Canon 50mm prime that they do. They do a very cheap one, which is actually only about £100.
Yep.
They do this one here, which was kind of about £200-300, I think it was, and then they do the L series one, which is
you're looking over £1,000 for one of them.
Pretty big money, yeah. And obviously the L series is sharper, but in terms of aperture, the cheapest one's an f1.8, this one here is an f1.4, and the L is an f1.2.
Yeah.
I would say that a 50mm best first lens, if you haven't bought any lenses yet, go and get yourself a 50mm. They're pretty cheap. You get really wide aperture, so you can start taking more interesting kind of photos. It's better in low light. However, my personal preference, which is something I've only recently bought, is this, the Sigma 50mm f1.4 art lens. I'm a big fan of the Sigma art lenses. We've got the 18 to 35, which we're recording on right now. And I've recently just bought this Sigma 50mm. Some of the shots I've been getting with it, really happy with it. I think the focusing could be faster.
Yeah.
It could be faster. But on the whole, super happy. And I bought this second hand for a few £100, about £400.
Bargain, really, isn't it?
It's not too bad for a good lens. And I think we'll have a full review. We'll do a full comparison video comparing these two 50. Look at the differences in sizes.
It's almost twice the size.
It is.
What's it like weight-wise? Yeah, it's a noticeable weight difference there.
That's a better one for just carrying around in your pocket, isn't it?
You could easily slip that in your coat pocket.
You could literally put that in your pocket.
I do like the Sigma lenses.
So category 1 winner, if you want to shoot music-y, event-y type, low-lighty photos, my winner is the Sigma 50mm, but I'd recommend if you don't have any lens, get the Canon.
Yeah. So on to category 2, sports and wildlife. For this, you need something with really kind of good focal range.
Yeah.
Get that reach.
Yeah.
IS is a bonus.
IS is a bonus because you're going to have to balance, especially with sport. Well, actually, and wildlife, depends what you're photographing,
Yeah.
I guess. But sports, pretty fast-paced.
Yep.
Unless you're photographing chess or something. Pretty fast-paced, so you're going to need to crank up that shutter speed quite a lot. But you still want to be able to, especially if it's dimly lit, if you're photographing sports at night perhaps. Again, the lighting's always an issue that you're juggling with.
So you need that wide aperture, as wide as you can get.
Wide as you can get. The wider the aperture though means that you're going to be struggling potentially with that focus.
Yes.
It's all a bit of a juggling act. So you want something that focuses as fast as you can get.
Yep, something with a really good focal range. Get that distance in.
You want something with a good reach. And IS, like you say, is a bonus.
IS is good.
Because if your shutter speed isn't quite fast enough, it won't stop motion blur in the shots, but it will stop any motion blur from your hands.
Yes. Yep.
So if
Especially
you're not
on those cold, rainy nights, photographing the football.
Indeed. So, Neil.
Well, there's only one lens that we could pick, really. It's the daddy of sports and wildlife photography, I'd say, which is this. It's the Canon 70-200 f2.8.
You do see at the football and whatnot people with like the 400mm and whatnot, but I mean, like, without going too silly, and if you're just looking to get into kind of sports and wildlife photography, this is the puppy.
This is the daddy.
So it's not the cheapest lens. In fact, it's the opposite of that. I think it's the most expensive lens.
I think it was around, you get about £1,300 second hand. They have just this is the Mark II. They have just released the Mark III.
Okay.
So you might find some of these cropping up on the used market, people wanting to upgrade. So prices might come down a bit.
I would say so. I mean, I looked at the Mark III, and we won't go into too much depth here, but as far as I could tell, the reasons for getting that seemed very... As an upgrade, anyway, seemed negligible. You get whiter paint, I think, was one of the things.
I think they swapped the focus ring and the focal length ring over.
And there was something. Has it got a new coating or something?
I think there's some new coating on the lens, but
anyway, we'd recommend getting a second-hand
70-200.
70-200. Some of the shots that you can get with this lens. Really, really sharp. Like, I've used it for photographing some rugby matches and stuff, just casual sort of Sunday stuff. You like photographing
I like my wildlife shots. I'm quite into wildlife photography, so it's great. You can kind of not scare the animals, keep your distance and get that perfect shot. It's weather sealed.
Well, you haven't got a perfect shot yet, but yeah, you can try.
You can try and get a perfect shot. It is weather sealed as well, so that's great.
Oh yeah, good consideration, yeah.
And also, if you really want that extra reach, you can get yourself one of these. This is the 2x converter for this lens, which then boosts it up to 140 to 400 on a full frame camera.
And then what is that on your 80D?
So on my 80D, standard that's a 105 to 300.
Yep.
And then with the 2x converter, that becomes 210 to 600.
So 600mm.
That's right.
Yeah.
600mm.
600mm. That's quite a...
That's a good reach.
So the downside of this is your aperture halves, correct?
Yes, I think it drops to 5.6.
Okay, so that isn't an issue for blowing the background out, because at 600mm it's still going to be blown out to hell. But obviously that becomes more of an issue with light.
And it's definitely a lot cheaper than buying a 400 or 600mm lens.
Indeed.
If you have this lens already and you need that extra bit of reach, definitely consider getting one of these for it.
The downside of that is, though, that I didn't know initially, was that it only works with this. because of the way that the flanges go in or something like that. If you could use this with any lens,
that would be amazing.
That would be amazing. Canon, please make a little 2x converter that works with any lens. Thank you. So, category 3, I forget.
I think we're on to landscape and architecture.
We are on to landscape and architecture.
So for landscapes, obviously what you need is something wide, getting that beautiful landscapes.
So we're kind of narrowing down some of our lens selections already with the wideness.
I mean, obviously so far the 50mm is the widest we've spoke about.
Yeah, we've got this little pancake lens, which is 40mm, so we're getting wider.
Yeah, we've got a couple of these other zoom lenses. So we've got the 24 to 105.
Yep, and we've got the 24 to 70.
But still 24, you could probably go a bit wider still.
24 is good. I mean, either of these lenses, the 24 to 105, which is an f4, and if you are shooting landscapes, f4 is totally fine, because you won't be shooting at like f2.8 necessarily. So the 24 to 105 would work fine. The 24 to 70 is a bit bigger, but that would also work fine too. But out of all the lenses that we own, the one that we bought specifically for such scenario is
16 to 35.
Canon 16 to 35.
This is the Mark II. It's a f2.8.
Yep.
And it is a beautiful lens.
It is a beautiful lens. That's Neil's lens. I've borrowed it a couple of times to go and shoot landscape stuff myself. It was quite challenging, I found. 16mm, especially on a full frame. Like I say, you get the true 16mm, and composing a shot at 16mm is a bit of a challenge, I think.
Yes, you really need to think about your shots carefully.
You can see like everything.
You can almost see behind you.
Yeah, it's pretty wide. And if you're trying to take a portrait with it at 16mm, as you'll see here, it looks really distorted. And that might be an effect you're going for. You might be wanting this kind of weird fisheye lens look.
Yeah.
In which case, cool. Yeah, if you could take nice portraits with it, but you'd have to kind of crank it to the 35mm end.
Yes.
But for landscapes, yeah, this thing is beautiful. Really sharp,
yep,
corner
sharp.
to corner. It is sort of the industry standard, I think, for landscape photography, architecture photography.
Yep.
Something else that you might not have thought about with this lens is, apart from the macro, this has got a surprisingly short minimum focal distance.
I think it's about 28 centimeters.
Yeah, so like that
there.
far. And as a result, I find myself using this quite a lot for sort of product photography as well, because you can really get in close on the subject. Yeah. Some of these, like for example the 7200, you have to stand so far away, obviously, because it's a long lens, but it can't, like the minimum focusing distance is what I think
1.2 meters.
Yeah, which is quite far away, and by that time, even when you're at 70mm, the thing you're trying to take a photo of, if it was a product, isn't filling the frame.
No.
So unless you want to have a macro, which we'll get to in a second, 16 to 35, because of its minimum focusing distance, is actually a really good candidate also for product shots and stuff.
I mean, that's a common theme as well, as you'll find with all these lenses we're talking about. They're not just one purpose.
No, there's a crossover between them all. And it's good to have a variety, obviously.
Yeah.
But I would say that if you were picking your core lenses, 16 to 35 has got to be in the list.
Yeah, definitely.
So, moving on to the next category, portrait photography.
Portraits. I mean, as we just spoke about with the 16 to 35, you could use that for portraits. You might get some strange effects from it.
Yep, it's more of a stylistic look, perhaps, if you want to kind of get that fisheye lens look. Now, in theory, you could use anything here for portraits.
Especially the 7200, which is really good for portraits as well.
You wouldn't think it, but that is really good for portraits.
Especially if you want to get those sort of candid shots, because of the reach on it, you can stand back and really catch someone without them knowing about it.
Yeah. But no, it could also put your kind of subject to ease a little bit, because you're not stood there with a camera right up in their face. You can sort of step back a little bit. So a lens like this is good for portraits.
Good for wedding portraits.
Indeed.
For that very reason.
Yeah, and like kind of taking some event photography, if you're trying to get a photo of somebody participating in an event without them noticing.
I mean, look at the other lenses we've got on here. We spoke about the 24 to 105 and this 24 to 70.
And both of those also, you can capture really nice portraits with them.
Again,
we have captured nice portraits with them. even the 50 mils, you could also argue, really good for portrait photography.
However, all that being said, there's only one lens.
Well, the video is the best.
Yes.
The best.
And
not like these are all fine. Which is the best?
And I would say it's the best by a good margin.
Yeah, I'd comfortably say that too.
And it is this, the 85mm f1.4 from Canon.
The behemoth.
Yes.
It is a bit of a unit, isn't it?
It's chunky is the word I like to use.
We did do a full review of this lens, which will kind of link up there, I think it goes, or there, I don't know. We've been doing this long enough now, we should have learned which side.
One of those sides.
I think it's that side. This lens is a tank, it's really nice. And it is actually one of the first lenses, I think I commented on it in our video review, where I was shocked at how sharp the lens is. The sharpness out of this lens is insane. It's really good. F1.4, 85mm, you're gonna get that beautiful bokeh. Really separate your subject from the background. So for portraits, I think this is a stunning lens.
Also, inbuilt IS, full stops of IS.
Yes.
So when you're out taking portrait shots, you're gonna be handheld a lot of the time, I would have thought. You're walking around following them.
Similar to this one, it will help with any shake that you might get from holding the camera.
Weather sealed as well, like the 70-200.
Also really good points. So yeah, that's the winner of the portrait lens category then.
Yeah.
Awesome.
On to the next category and the final category.
Which was?
Macro shots.
So yeah, it's a bit niche. Let's not call it macro, let's call it product photography. Because a lot of the time you are going to be using a lens. I mean, you could use any lens.
Yeah.
But when we are doing product photography, even if it's something as simple as listing something for sale on eBay, I tend to gravitate towards the 16-35 for the reasons that we've already described, or the macro. Now the macro lens is a 100mm f2.8 macro lens. You can, it also has IS as well. You can really focus close with this thing. You can get right up in someone's face and take interesting photos with this. Really stylistic looks. But I've used it for taking portraits with.
Yeah.
It's just a 100mm lens with just a really short focusing distance. It doesn't mean you have to just use it for macro photography.
Not at all.
I've had really good results. I've actually photographed another music gig with this lens, and that was not intentional. I just happened to have it on it because I'd just been photographing something else, and I was like, and I just quickly took some shots with it, and they came out fine.
Yeah.
Not fine, good. But
really good, yeah.
Fine. So it's quite versatile.
IS on that as well, I think.
IS.
Yeah.
The IS is a bit noisy.
It does sound like it's broken.
It does.
That's wrong.
But no, like I say, for product shots, really good. And a little bonus, we've talked specifically about photography for all of this, but this lens is really good along with the 85mm for capturing pretty awesome looking B-roll footage.
Yeah, if you're into your videos as well, like we are, brilliant two lenses.
Yeah, and obviously these aren't the only lenses in the world. These are just the ones that we own, but we've made conscious purchasing decisions around them all because we were looking to fill specific needs of...
Yes, fill those gaps for you.
Yeah, and there are overlaps. In fact, there's not just overlaps, there's pure duplicates, isn't there? Like they've got two 50mm, we've got a 24-70 and a 24-105. But yeah, hopefully that gives you an indication of why we picked these lenses, what we use them for, what you can get out of them. And give you some ideas if you are looking to purchase some new lenses, some new glass, and you want a bit of a steer in the right direction for the kind of photography that you enjoy doing. This may have been of help.
So out of the 5 lenses we've picked, each one excels in the category we've picked it for. For example, the 85mm excels as a portrait lens. But also, I mean, they're so versatile. We spoke about, you could use the 70-200 for sports photography and then go and photograph a wedding and then go and photograph the football. If
you're looking to buy your first lens, you just got your standard kit lens that you bought with your camera. This is the winner for me, as we've already said, the 50mm. I enjoy the challenges of just going out with a prime lens, either the 50 or perhaps the 85, And if I want to zoom in, I've just got to move close.
Yeah, it really makes you think about your shots, and I think it makes you a better photographer for having to do so.
I think so too, yeah. So that kind of wraps it up really. That's our top 5 lenses for Canon cameras for photography.
That we own.
Currently. Till next week. If that was of any use to you whatsoever, then please give the video a little like, share it with your friends, consider subscribing for more sort of photography videos.
Yep, hit that little bell icon as well to be notified of our latest updates.
Indeed, and I guess we'll catch you in the next one.
See you in the next one.
Cheers.